Going to be a video of the terms to know for Reconstruction, and I'm going to break it down into 3 sections because I like the number 3. It's my dog's favorite number. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good. This is the stuff that may warm the heart a little bit. These are the terms that are like, that's not too bad, Mr. Snow. So here we go. We got the Freedmen's Bureau. What you need to know about this organization is their goal was to make sure they could get food, shelter, education to recently freed African Americans after the Civil War. And this organization spent a lot of time and effort and money to make sure the people down in the South that were recently freed were given some sort of chance to start their new life. So Freedmen's Bureau, awesome sauce. Enforcement Acts. Enforcement Acts, their real goal was to make sure that people preventing others from voting, specifically people of color from voting, were going to be punished. They were a way to make sure that the federal government was keeping an eye on people trying to prevent people from exercising their rights, specifically the right to vote. So that's pretty good stuff. And then we got to talk about 3 amendments. 13th Amendment, I'm going to make it simple. Freed African Americans from slavery. Freed slaves at a federal level. 14th Amendment, man, people, it makes it seem so complicated. I'll make 14th Amendment super simple. If you are born here in America, you are a citizen, period. Born here, you're a citizen, which means all the rights that are granted to citizens are granted to you. This means that you cannot have any of those rights infringed because you're born here, you're a citizen. Amendment 15. Amendment 15 is all men, regardless of race, can vote. Pretty simple. All men, regardless of race, can vote. Sorry, women, doesn't happen for you guys till the 19th Amendment. We have some time on that. So all men can vote regardless of race. In parentheses, non-Native Americans. We'll talk about that later. So that's the good. Let's get to the bad. The bad are 2 terms referring to how people referred in the South to people they considered bad. 1, carpetbagger. Carpetbaggers were people that lived in the North, and during Reconstruction, they would move south and try to take advantage of the situation the South was in. The South was not doing too good. Remember, most of the Civil War was fought in the South, and also there's the reconstruction of their governments. And you had people from the North coming down and taking advantage of them. The reason why they call them carpetbaggers is because they would roll all their possessions into a giant carpet that they put on their back and they would go in there. So it wasn't really a carpet. It was something that looked like a carpet. So carpetbaggers, Northerners moving south to take advantage. Scallywags, like the pirates, scallywag. These were Southerners who were actually taking the side of the North during Reconstruction for personal gain, to benefit their business, to benefit their political career. They were called scallywags. So that's the bad. Now let's get to the ugly. Reconstruction has a lot of issues concerning race relations, and we talked about it in class, and we watched some videos in class, and we did some things in class referring to it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the KKK. The KKK is a racist organization. I say is because they still exist today. They're a white supremacist organization that believe that the white race is superior. They terrorized people. Back then they burned churches. They lynched people. They killed people indiscriminately when it came to trying to strike fear into the African American population or anybody who was aiding the African American population during Reconstruction. Nathan Bradford Lewis was its first president, leader. They wear white garb, and they just do atrocious things. The fact that they're still in existence is ridiculous, to say the least. All right, next, sharecropping. It's a system that basically kept African Americans enslaved without the word slave. So you have all these people, the African Americans that are freed, but they need to find jobs. And typical jobs that they have the ability to do is they can work on the farm. So they try to get a job on the farm. But the way sharecropping works is you own a portion of that land. You don't own the land. You own a little house on the land, and then you raise crops, you tend the crops, you pull the crops, and then you sell the crops, and a portion of that is going to go to the person that owns the land. And what happens is they have this system of debt where the African American population that goes to these sharecropping farms is they're constantly in debt and never can get out of debt. Therefore, they can never leave the farm, just like slaves can never leave the farms before. It's slavery without the name. I mean, really, it's financial slavery without the name. Yeah. Next, black codes. Black codes were placed on African Americans in the South. They were vagrancy laws. They were basically, they're also curfew laws where they had to be back at a certain time. If you're caught breaking these laws, you would be forced to serve labor, like, how they had to before. Except they don't call it slavery. They say it's a legal repercussion because they broke a black code. Slavery without the name. Speaking of terrible things, the Colfax Massacre. I'll talk about this in class, but generally speaking, here's what happened. Louisiana, during Reconstruction, you had a group of white supremacists that started getting political power, and the power they couldn't have, they tried to take. Matter of fact, they tried to take it with guns. They started taking courthouses, and they went to the Colfax courthouse, and the courthouse was defended by African Americans because they were trying to defend it because Republicans who were voted down there were trying to give them rights and let them have rights. Well, the white supremacists murdered 150 people. 50 of them they took as prisoners, and then they killed them that night. They killed people that were waving white flags. They killed people that were just trying to defend the courthouse. They threw the bodies in the river, and then 100 of these white supremacists were indicted, which doesn't mean they're going to jail. It means they're going to have to go to a court case. And zero of the people, nobody, not one person who was part of this massacre was prosecuted for doing what they did. Not one. To make things worse, in Colfax, they put up a plaque commemorating the event, not as a horrible thing, but as a good thing. Imagine if you're an African-American person, you know about the Colfax Massacre, you know how 150 people were killed, no one was arrested for this, and then they put a plaque up commemorating the murderers. I told you, the good, the bad, this is definitely ugly. All right, stuff to keep in mind. Study, because that test, it's right around the